The cursor hovered over my personal server profile for exactly 3 seconds before he clicked delete. Nathan Prescott didn't even look at me when he did it, just kept that smug grin plastered across his face while the confirmation dialogue flashed on his screen. "You don't own this code," he said, voice dripping with condescension. The server icon blinked once, twice, then vanished. That's when everything went dark. Every monitor in the building flickered to black. The hum of servers in the next room stuttered, then died. Someone down the hall screamed. Nathan's face went from smug to ghost white in under 2 seconds. And me? I closed my laptop, slid it into my bag, and smiled. The whole corporate database had just erased itself. Before anyone could process what was happening, I was already standing, my messenger bag over my shoulder, walking toward the exit like I'd just finished a regular Tuesday. Behind me, chaos erupted, voices overlapping, phones ringing, someone yelling about backup protocols. Nathan sat frozen at his desk, his mouse clicking frantically at a screen that showed nothing but an error message in brutal red text. I didn't look back. Real quick, if stories like this make the workday a little more bearable, hitting that subscribe button costs nothing but means everything. We're on this journey together, pushing toward 5,000 subscribers, and every single one of you makes that possible. No pressure, just appreciation for anyone who wants to stick around for what comes next. My name is Romilly Chen. Well, Romilly Anderson now. After the divorce, though I kept the hyphen on my business cards for a while until it felt like dragging around old luggage. Senior systems architect at Helix Solutions, a mid-sized tech firm in Portland that specialized in database management for healthcare providers. 15 years I'd given them. 15 years of late nights, weekend calls, and building something from the ground up that actually worked. My roots weren't in Silicon Valley mansions or legacy tech money. I grew up in a split-level ranch in Beaverton, where my dad fixed cars in the driveway, and my mom managed the books for 3 local businesses on a kitchen table covered in receipts and coffee rings. They taught me 2 things: how to solve problems nobody else wanted to touch, and how to remember what it felt like to need someone to give a damn. That second lesson mattered more than people think. Empathy isn't weakness in tech, it's architecture. It's understanding that the code you write at 2 a.m. affects the nurse pulling a patient record at 2 p.m. It's remembering that servers aren't just metal boxes. They're infrastructure for human beings trying to do their jobs. Nathan Prescott never learned that lesson. Nathan arrived on a Monday in October, carrying a titanium briefcase and wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. The executive team introduced him as our new director of technology operations, a title that apparently meant he supervised everything I'd built without understanding any of it. His resume sparkled. MIT graduate, 3 years at a Bay Area startup that got acquired, 2 years consulting for firms that paid obscene rates for mediocre advice. He had the confidence of someone who'd never actually broken anything important enough to learn from. I knew we were in trouble during his first team meeting. "I've reviewed the current infrastructure," Nathan announced, not bothering with pleasantries or introductions. He pulled up a slide deck full of buzzwords and consulting frameworks that had nothing to do with our actual systems. "Frankly, what I'm seeing is inefficiency, redundancy, a lack of modern DevOps principles." He said DevOps principles like it was a magic spell. Lawrence, one of our senior developers, raised his hand. "The current architecture has 99.97% uptime over 5 years. The redundancy is intentional, healthcare data can't go down." Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Uptime is fine, but efficiency matters more. We need to streamline, cut costs, modernize the stack." I should have said something then, should have pushed back, but 15 years in tech had taught me to pick my battles, and I figured Nathan would crash into reality soon enough on his own. I was right about the crash, wrong about the timeline. The first week, Nathan started scheduling optimization meetings, hour-long sessions where he'd pontificate about cloud migrations and containerization while the rest of us tried not to check our phones. He loved the sound of his own voice, loved throwing around terms like paradigm shift and synergistic integration. The second week, he started making changes. Small things at first. Adjusting monitoring thresholds without consulting anyone. reassigning tickets based on what he thought was important rather than actual priority. Sending emails at 11 p.m. demanding status updates on projects that were already completed. By week 3, he'd started targeting me specifically. It began with a meeting request. Infrastructure review Romilly's projects. No agenda, no context. Just a calendar invite for 4 p.m. on a Friday, the universal time slot for conversations that weren't going to be pleasant. I showed up prepared. Brought documentation, performance metrics, incident reports showing our stability. Nathan sat behind his new desk. He'd already redecorated the office with minimalist furniture and a standing desk he never actually used, with his laptop angled so I couldn't see the screen. "Romilly," he started, not bothering with small talk. "I've been digging into the server architecture, and I'm concerned about what I'm finding." "Concerned how?" He spun his laptop around. On the screen was a directory tree of our server infrastructure, with one folder highlighted in yellow, Raw Personal. My personal workspace. Every developer has one, a place for scripts, tools, automation that makes the job easier, but isn't officially part of the production environment. Mine was more extensive than most because, well, I'd been there longer and built more tools. But it was all documented, all backed up, all approved by the previous director. "This," Nathan said, tapping the screen, "is a security risk. Personal directories on company servers, unaudited code. For all I know, you could be running anything in here." The implication was clear. He thought I was doing something shady. I kept my voice level. "That folder contains automation scripts, monitoring tools, and utility programs I've developed over the years. Everything's documented in the wiki. Previous management approved it. Most of those tools are integrated into our daily operations." "Integrated how?" "Database maintenance scripts, automated backup verification, system health monitoring." He held up a hand. "I'll need a full audit. Documentation of everything in that directory, justification for why it needs to exist, and a migration plan for anything production critical." Translation. He wanted me to spend weeks documenting things that already worked so he could justify deleting them anyway. I spent the next 2 weeks compiling documentation that Nathan never read. Every email I sent him bounced back with one-line responses. "Received. Under review. We'll discuss later." Meanwhile, he was making bigger changes. He fired Kelly from infrastructure support, 22 years with the company, and replaced her with a contractor who'd never worked in healthcare. He canceled our monitoring service subscription to cut costs, then acted surprised when we missed a minor outage because nobody saw the alerts. He pushed a streamlining initiative that mostly involved deleting comments from code because they cluttered the files. The team started hemorrhaging people. Lawrence put in his notice, then Angela, then both of the junior developers who just finished onboarding. I should have left too. My resume could land interviews anywhere. But there was something about abandoning the systems I'd built, systems that real people depended on, that felt like leaving a kid in a burning building. So I stayed, and I documented, and I watched Nathan dismantle 15 years of careful work with the confidence of someone who'd never actually had to fix anything. The breaking point came on a Thursday in November. I was in the server room, actual physical server room, because despite Nathan's cloud obsession, healthcare regulations meant we still maintained on-premise infrastructure, running a routine hardware check. The door opened behind me. Nathan walked in, followed by 2 people I didn't recognize. Suits, definitely not technical. "Romilly," Nathan said, not bothering with introductions. "These are auditors from corporate. They're here to review our security compliance." This was news to me. Nobody mentioned an audit. I scheduled it last week, sent an email. He hadn't. I checked my phone right there, nothing. One of the auditors, a thin man with wireframe glasses, stepped forward. "We need access to all server directories, including personal workspaces, to verify compliance with corporate data policies." Nathan was watching me, waiting for a reaction. I unlocked my workstation and stepped aside. "Everything's documented. Access logs are clean. You won't find any issues." The audit took 3 hours. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Every script was documented, every tool was logged, every line of code had a clear purpose. When they finished, the thin man nodded at Nathan. "All clear, no violations." Nathan's jaw tightened. He'd been hoping for ammunition. After the auditors left, he cornered me in the hallway. "Just because you pass the audit doesn't mean that personal directory stays. It's non-standard, it's a security risk, and I want it gone." Those tools are integrated into production. Deleting them will break automated processes. Then document the processes and rebuild them properly, in the official repositories, under proper version control. They already are under version control. They already are in the documentation. You'd know that if you'd read any of the materials I sent. His face flushed. "I don't appreciate the attitude, Romilly. I'm trying to run a professional operation here." "So am I. I have been for 15 years. "Yeah, well, things change. New management means new standards. Either adapt or find somewhere else to work." He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the hallway with my pulse hammering in my ears. That night, I went home and updated my resume. But before I could start sending applications, Nathan made his move. The email came at 6:47 a.m. on a Friday, sent to the entire technology department with executive leadership CC'd. Subject: Infrastructure Modernization Initiative Team, effective immediately. We're implementing new standards for server management and code repositories. All personal directories on company servers will be decommissioned by end of business today. Any tools or scripts currently housed in personal workspaces must be migrated to official repositories or will be permanently deleted. This is non-negotiable. We cannot maintain professional standards while allowing unaudited personal directories to exist on production infrastructure. Compliance is mandatory. No exceptions. Nathan Prescott, Director of Technology Operations. I read it twice, then checked the timestamp again. 6:47 a.m. He'd sent this before most people were even awake, giving approximately 10 hours to migrate or lose potentially years of work. My phone started buzzing before I finished my coffee. Text messages from the remaining team members, all variations of the same panic. Is he serious? How do we migrate everything in one day? What happens to the automation? I called Lawrence, who'd already given notice but was working his final 2 weeks. "He's trying to force you out," Lawrence said flatly. "This whole thing is targeted at you. Everyone else barely uses their personal directories." "I know. So what are you going to do?" "Good question." I could comply, spend the day frantically migrating tools and scripts, probably missing things, definitely breaking automated processes that kept our systems running. Or I could refuse, let him delete everything, and watch the infrastructure crumble. Neither option was great. Then Lawrence said something that changed the equation. "You know what's actually in your personal directory, right? Like everything that's integrated?" "Of course. Backup verification, health monitoring, automated maintenance." "No, I mean everything. The database reconciliation script, the one that runs every night." My stomach dropped. The reconciliation script. The one I'd written 8 years ago when we migrated from the old database system to the new one. The one that checked data integrity between the legacy backup system and the current production database. The one that had been running silently, perfectly, every single night for 8 years. The one that nobody remembered existed because it had never failed. "Nathan doesn't know about that script," I said slowly. "Does anyone?" I thought back. The original project documentation was archived. The previous director knew, but he'd retired 4 years ago. The team members who'd worked on the migration had all moved on. "No," I said. "I don't think anyone does." Lawrence was quiet for a moment. "What happens if that script stops running?" I pulled up the script on my laptop, reading through the code I'd written nearly a decade ago. It was elegant, efficient, checking data integrity, flagging discrepancies, automatically correcting minor issues, and logging everything for review. Without it, the databases would drift, I said. Production and backup would slowly desynchronize. Nothing catastrophic immediately, but over time, the backup system would become unreliable, eventually useless. How long until someone noticed? Depends on whether we needed to do a restore. Could be weeks, could be months, could be never if we got lucky. Or, Lawrence said carefully, could be immediately if someone deleted the script while it was maintaining active connections to both databases. The implication hung in the air between us. I should clarify something here. I wasn't planning sabotage, wasn't planning revenge. I was planning compliance, exact, literal, complete compliance with Nathan's directive. He wanted personal directories deleted? Fine, I'd delete mine. But I'd do it my way. I spent the morning creating documentation. Not the documentation Nathan wanted, he'd already ignored all of that. This was documentation for myself. A complete map of every script, every tool, every automated process that lived in my personal directory and touched production systems. The list was longer than I'd remembered. Database reconciliation script, critical, runs nightly backup verification tool, important, runs weekly system health monitoring dashboard, nice to have, runs constantly, automated log rotation, prevents disk space issues, performance optimization scripts, maintains query efficiency, user access audit tool, compliance requirement. 12 other utilities of varying importance, all of it documented, all of it logged, all of it quietly keeping Helix Solutions running smoothly while Nathan took credit for the uptime. At 2 p.m., Nathan sent another email. Reminder: personal directory decommission deadline is 5 p.m. today. I will be personally verifying compliance. Failure to comply will result in administrative deletion of non-compliant directories. Administrative deletion. He was going to do it himself. I replied to the email, CCing the same executive distribution list he'd used. Nathan understood. I'll be removing all contents from my personal directory before the deadline. Please note that several automated processes will need to be manually restarted after migration. I've attached documentation. Romilly, the attached documentation was comprehensive, technical, and 47 pages long. Nathan would never read it. I knew he wouldn't. But it would be there, time-stamped and official, showing I'd provided fair warning. At 4:30 p.m., I started migrating files. Most of it was straightforward: copy scripts to the official repository, update paths, test functionality. The non-critical stuff I migrated cleanly. System health dashboard, migrated. Log rotation, migrated. Performance optimization, migrated. But the database reconciliation script, that was trickier. See, that script wasn't just a file I could copy and paste. It had dependencies, specific permissions, specific server access, specific scheduling that was tied to my personal directory structure. Migrating it properly would take hours of reconfiguration, testing, and coordination with the database team. I had 30 minutes. At 4:55 p.m., I sent Nathan one final email. Nathan, personal directory has been cleared. Most critical functions migrated successfully. Database reconciliation script requires additional configuration time to migrate properly. Recommend scheduling maintenance window next week to complete the transfer. Romilly at 4:59 p.m., Nathan replied, no extensions. Delete everything now, so I did. I selected my personal directory, raw personal, and hovered my cursor over the delete button. Took a breath. Thought about 15 years of late nights and weekend calls and building something that actually mattered. Then I thought about Nathan's smug face and his titanium briefcase and his complete lack of understanding or respect for the work that kept his precious uptime statistics looking good. I clicked delete, my directory vanished. A confirmation message popped up, directory permanently removed. The screen flickered, just once, barely noticeable, but I saw it. At 5:03 p.m., Nathan appeared at my desk. He didn't knock, didn't wait for acknowledgement, just walked up and stood there, arms crossed, radiating authority he hadn't earned. Personal directory cleared? He asked. Completely. Good. He pulled out his phone, checking something. I'm running a verification scan now to make sure. If I find anything left behind, we're going to have a serious conversation about insubordination. I just nodded. My laptop was already packed. Messenger bag already on my shoulder. Nathan frowned. Going somewhere? It's 5 p.m. on a Friday. I'm going home. We have the infrastructure review meeting at 5:30. I sent a calendar invite. An hour ago. For a meeting scheduled after business hours on a Friday with no agenda, I have plans. His jaw tightened. This isn't optional, Romilly. Neither is my time off. I stood, slinging my bag over my shoulder. Nathan stepped slightly to the left, not quite blocking my path but making it clear I'd have to move around him. You know what I think? He said, voice low enough that the few remaining people in the office couldn't hear. I think you've been coasting for years. Built a little kingdom here, made yourself indispensable with your custom tools and institutional knowledge, and now you're upset that someone's finally holding you accountable. The anger that had been simmering for weeks crystallized into something cold and precise. You want to know what I think, Nathan? I think you're so desperate to prove you're worth the salary they're paying you that you can't tell the difference between optimization and destruction. I think you've never actually built anything that mattered, so you don't understand what it takes to maintain it. And I think that's when the first monitor went dark. A workstation 3 desks down, screen flickering once, twice, then displaying a database connection error. Then another monitor, then another. Nathan's phone started ringing, then someone else's. Then the desk phone near the conference room. The overhead lights flickered. Nathan stared at his phone, color draining from his face. What the hell? My phone buzzed. A text from Lawrence. Database just went offline. All of it. What did you do? I hadn't done anything. Technically, I just deleted my personal directory exactly as instructed. The fact that my personal directory had contained the script that maintained active database connections, and that forcibly deleting those active connections would cause the reconciliation process to fail catastrophically. And that the reconciliation process, failing catastrophically, would trigger a safety protocol that shut down database access to prevent data corruption. Well, that was just unfortunate timing. Nathan was already moving, half-jogging toward the server room. I followed, bag still over my shoulder, because this was about to get interesting. The server room was chaos. Monitors displaying error messages in cascading red text. The senior database administrator, a guy named Walter who'd been with the company even longer than me, was typing frantically, sweat beading on his forehead. What happened? Nathan demanded. Walter didn't look up. Database reconciliation process crashed, hard, triggered an emergency shutdown to prevent corruption. I'm trying to restart it, but something's wrong with the backup connections. How long until it's fixed? I don't know. I've never seen this happen before. The reconciliation script has been running perfectly for years. I don't understand why it would suddenly. Walter stopped typing, turned slowly to look at me. He knew. I could see the realization spreading across his face. The script, he said quietly, it was in your personal directory. Nathan's head snapped toward me. What? The database reconciliation script, Walter repeated, louder now. The one that maintains integrity between production and backup. Romilly wrote it years ago. It runs from her personal directory. Ran, I corrected. Past tense. The directory was deleted at 5 p.m. as instructed. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes explosions. Nathan's face went through several colors, red, white, purple, before settling on a shade that suggested his blood pressure was approaching dangerous levels. You deleted a critical production script, he said, voice shaking. Without authorization, without migration, you just deleted it. I pulled out my phone, calmly opened my email, and showed him the screen. I sent you 3 emails about the database reconciliation script. Documented that it needed proper migration time. You replied, and I quote, "No extensions. Delete everything now." I didn't. He grabbed my phone, reading the email chain. His hand was trembling. I didn't know it was critical infrastructure. It was in the documentation I sent, page 17, section 4, database reconciliation and integrity maintenance. I can't read 47 pages of technical documentation in one afternoon. Then, maybe you shouldn't have given one afternoon to decommission 15 years of infrastructure. Walter had stopped trying to fix the database and was now watching our exchange with the horrified fascination of someone witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Nathan thrust my phone back at me. Fix it, right now, restore the script and get the database back online. I can't. What do you mean you can't? The directory was permanently deleted. The script is gone. Restoring it means rebuilding it from scratch, reconfiguring database permissions, reestablishing the connection protocols, and testing everything to make sure it won't cause further corruption. That's a week of work minimum. We don't have a week. We have healthcare clients expecting 24/7 access to patient records. I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. Then I suggest you contact the backup recovery team and start working on a restoration plan. You're not leaving. You caused this mess. You're going to fix it. Actually, I said, keeping my voice perfectly level. "You caused this mess when you ordered me to delete critical infrastructure without proper planning." "I caused nothing. I followed your direct order, which you put in writing and sent to executive leadership." Nathan looked like he wanted to strangle me. "This is sabotage. This is compliance. I deleted my personal directory, as mandated. The fact that you didn't bother to understand what was in that directory before ordering its deletion isn't my problem." "The hell it isn't. You knew this would happen. I warned you it might happen. In writing, with documentation, you chose not to read it." Walter cleared his throat. Guys, the database is still down. We need to." "Romilly fixes this," Nathan snapped. "Right now, or she's fired." I smiled. Actually smiled. "Fire me then. But you should know that rebuilding the reconciliation script from scratch requires intimate knowledge of both the current database architecture and the legacy system it replaced. I'm the only person left who has that knowledge. Fire me, and you'll be hiring consultants at 3 times my salary to spend 6 months figuring out what I could fix in a week." Nathan's phone rang. He answered it without looking away from me. "What?" The voice on the other end was loud enough to hear even without speakerphone. Angry, executive-level angry. "I understand, sir," Nathan said, voice tight. "We're addressing the situation now. Technical malfunction, we'll have it resolved shortly." He hung up, looked at me, looked at Walter, looked back at me. "How long to fix it?" he asked through gritted teeth. "If I start now, work through the weekend, and everything goes perfectly. Database back online by Monday morning. Full reconciliation functionality restored by Wednesday." That's unacceptable. That's reality. The alternative is hiring outside consultants, which takes longer and costs more. Your choice. Another phone rang, then another. The chaos was spreading as more people realized the database was down and client systems were failing. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. The smug confidence from this morning completely evaporated. "Fine, fix it. Whatever you need, just fix it." "I'll need a few things first," I said. "In writing." Nathan stared at me. "You're making demands right now." "I'm establishing terms. Big difference." His phone rang again. He declined the call. "What terms?" "First, a formal acknowledgement that this outage resulted from your directive to delete infrastructure without proper migration planning. Sent to executive leadership." "Absolutely not." "Then good luck with the consultants." I turned toward the door. "Wait," Nathan's voice cracked slightly. "Wait, what else?" I turned back. "Second, restoration of my administrative access to all systems, no restrictions, no oversight. I can't rebuild infrastructure if I'm working with limited permissions." "Fine, what else?" "Third, no retaliation. No write-ups, no disciplinary action, no convenient performance reviews." "Put it in writing." "You think you're in a position to negotiate?" Another phone call. This time he answered. "Yes, sir, we're working on it." "No, sir, I can't give an exact timeline yet." "Yes, sir, I understand the severity." He hung up and looked at me with pure hatred. "Fine, you'll have everything in writing. Now fix the damn database." "One more thing." "What?" "When this is resolved, I want a written recommendation from executive leadership. Not from you, glowing, for my next job, because after this weekend, I'm done." Nathan actually laughed, bitter, exhausted. "You're quitting?" "The moment the database is stable and reconciliation is restored, I'm giving my notice. 2 weeks, professional, by the book. But I'm not staying in an environment where management deletes critical infrastructure to win a power play." He wanted to argue. I could see it in his eyes. But 3 more phones were ringing now, and someone was shouting down the hallway, and the weight of consequences was finally settling on his shoulders. "Fine," he said. "Whatever, just fix it." I set my bag down and pulled out my laptop. "Walter, I need full access to the production and backup database servers. Also the legacy system documentation, if we still have it." Walter was already typing. "Sending you credentials now. Documentation is in the archive, I'll pull it up." Nathan stood there, clearly unsure what to do now that I'd agreed to help. "You should probably go update executive leadership," I said without looking at him. "Let them know the situation is under control and we'll have restoration timelines by tomorrow morning. You don't give me orders. Then stand there and watch. Either way, I have work to do." He left. Probably to go make phone calls and figure out how to spin this disaster in a way that didn't end his career. Walter rolled his chair over to my workstation. That was the most beautiful professional suicide I've ever witnessed. Not suicide, I said, pulling up the database architecture files. Exit strategy. You really warned him in the documentation? Page 17, section 4, highlighted and cross-referenced. He never read it. He never reads anything. That's why we're here. Walter was quiet for a moment, watching me navigate through system files. Can you actually fix this? I opened a terminal window and started typing commands, checking database status, reviewing error logs. The damage was extensive, but not irreparable. The reconciliation script had crashed mid-process, leaving both databases in an inconsistent state. The safety protocols had kicked in correctly, shutting down access to prevent further corruption. It was fixable, tedious, technical, time-consuming, but fixable. Yeah, I said, I can fix it. It'll take time, but I can fix it. How'd you know deleting the directory would cause this? I didn't, not for certain. But I knew the script maintained active database connections, and I knew forcibly terminating those connections during operation would probably trigger the safety shutdown. Probably. Walter grinned. You took a calculated risk. I followed orders. The risk was Nathan's, not mine. Romilly, you're my hero. The rest of Friday night was a blur of terminal commands, database queries, and cold coffee from the break room. Walter stayed to help, mostly because he wanted to see how the situation resolved, and partly because he knew this was the kind of war story that would define his career. By midnight, I'd stabilized the production database enough to bring it back online in read-only mode. Not perfect, but enough that critical systems could pull patient records without full editing capabilities. By 3 a.m., I'd rebuilt the basic framework of the reconciliation script, though it would need extensive testing before going live. By 6 a.m. Saturday, I'd restored most functionality. Backup systems were syncing. Data integrity checks were running. The crisis was becoming a controlled recovery. Nathan showed up at 7 a.m. looking like he hadn't slept. He probably hadn't. Status? He asked. Production database is live, limited functionality. Full restoration by Monday morning, like I said. Reconciliation script rebuilt and testing now. Executive leadership wants a full report. They can have one Monday. They want it today. I looked up from my screen. Nathan, I've been awake for 26 hours fixing a problem you created. They'll get the report when the work is done. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. The fight had gone out of him somewhere around 2 a.m. when the board of directors apparently got involved. There's going to be an investigation, he said quietly, about what happened. I'm sure there will be. They're going to want to know why critical infrastructure was in a personal directory. It was approved by previous management. It's documented. The real question they'll ask is why you ordered its deletion without understanding what you were deleting. Nathan sat down in the chair Walter had vacated hours ago. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. I screwed up, he said, not an apology, just a statement of fact. Yeah, I thought I was fixing inefficiencies, modernizing, doing what they hired me to do. You were trying to prove your value by finding problems that didn't exist. Instead, you created problems that didn't need to exist. He laughed, hollow, exhausted. My career is over, isn't it? Probably, but that's not my problem. We sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the hum of servers and the clicking of my keyboard as I ran another round of integrity checks. Finally, Nathan stood. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You were right. I should have listened. You should have read the documentation. That's literally all you had to do. He nodded and walked out. I never saw him again. By Monday morning, the database was fully operational. Reconciliation script was live and tested. All systems were back to normal, except for the massive gap in trust between the technology department and management. I submitted my formal report to executive leadership at 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., I had emails from 3 different VPs thanking me for my quick response and professional handling of the crisis. By 11 a.m., I had the written recommendation I'd asked for. By noon, I'd submitted my resignation. My last 2 weeks at Helix Solutions were remarkably peaceful. Nathan was on leave, pending the investigation, which everyone knew was corporate speak for cleaning out his desk remotely. An interim director was brought in, someone from the healthcare division who actually understood our work, And the first thing she did was ask me to document everything I'd built. Not to audit it, not to criticize it, just to understand it. I spent those 2 weeks writing comprehensive documentation, training Walter on the reconciliation script, and setting up monitoring systems so the next person wouldn't have to rebuild from scratch if something broke. On my last day, the team threw a small party. Nothing fancy, just cake in the break room and genuine appreciation from people who understood what had almost been lost. Lawrence, who'd already moved on to a new job, sent me a text. "Heard you're leaving. Also heard Nathan is too. Coincidence?" I replied. "Just following orders, exactly as given. You're terrifying." "I love it." The interim director called me into her office on my way out. She was older, maybe late 50s, with the kind of calm authority that came from decades of actually knowing what she was doing. "Romilly," she said, "I read the investigation report, all of it, including the emails." "Okay. You were right about all of it. The documentation was clear, your warnings were explicit." Nathan ignored every red flag. "I know," she smiled. "You also knew exactly what would happen when that directory was deleted." I didn't say anything. "I'm not criticizing," she continued. "Honestly, I'm impressed. You followed orders, documented everything, and let incompetence expose itself. That's either brilliant strategy or perfect coincidence." "It was compliance," I said. "Nothing more." "Right, compliance." She handed me an envelope. "Your final paycheck, plus a bonus for your work during the crisis. Also, if you ever want to come back, my door is open. We could use someone who understands both the technical side and the human side." "I appreciate that, but I think it's time for something new," she nodded. "Where are you headed?" "Consulting, actually, going independent, helping companies avoid disasters like the one we just had." "That's perfect for you. Send me your information. I know a dozen firms that could use your expertise." I left Helix Solutions at 5 p.m. on a Friday, exactly 15 years and 3 months after I'd started. My badge was deactivated. My access was revoked. My personal directory, the new one I'd created, was properly documented and migrated to official repositories. Everything by the book, everything professional. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Nathan had updated his profile, seeking new opportunities in technology leadership. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. 3 months later, I was running my own consulting firm. 6 months after that, I had more clients than I could handle. A year later, I hired my first employee, Lawrence, who was tired of corporate politics and wanted to work somewhere that valued competence over ego. And sometimes, late at night when I'm reviewing a potential client's infrastructure, I'll find it, the personal directory, full of undocumented scripts and critical processes that nobody remembers building. I'll send a detailed report. I'll explain the risks. I'll recommend proper migration and documentation. And if they ignore it, well, that's not my problem. I just follow orders, exactly as given. If this one hit different, that subscribe button is right there. No pressure, but we're building something here, pushing toward 5,000 subscribers, and every single person who joins makes that goal more real. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.